Hey, it's Ryan. Today we're modeling a Dragon Ball character. I know what you're thinking. Dragon Ball? Hasn't he done this a ton before? Yes, I have. I love Dragon Ball. This time we're working on Launch. Toriyama might have forgotten about her, but I haven't. I'm going to attempt to recreate this comic image as close as I can in 3D using Blender. The source files and real-time 13-hour process video is up on my Gumroad, but I'll talk about that later. For now, let's launch this Sculpt breakdown video. Okay. I normally skip over this part when making the videos, but most of the time, I'll do a bit of work in Photoshop to make a reference that I can use throughout the modeling process. I took the reference image of Launch and lassoed the arms to straighten them out, then started going over the basic shapes that make her up on different layers so they're easy to transform and with different colors so I could tell where different parts intersect. After I have the shapes I need, I duplicate and transform the shapes into a T-pose. I'll make one for the front view and one for the side view, making sure certain landmarks line up, like the head, chin, shoulders, knees, etc. After I get my reference finished, I pull it into Blender and scale it to fit the height for a rigify rig so I can model to a close to real life scale. When modeling an anime style head, there are three main edges we need to nail in order to get the shape right from most angles. For the front view, I extruded a vert around the cheek and the side of the face. This is the outermost part of the cheek and will give the silhouette to the front view. For the side view, I take a vert from the center and extrude it from the chin upwards following the reference. This will give us a nice silhouette from the side. And finally, extrude a vert along the 3/4 view. In order to view it in this angle, I went to the front view, then pressed the right arrow key on the numpad to rotate the view, then pressed numpad 5 to get back into orthographic view, then moved my reference where I needed it. The anime style face is all about the silhouettes, and the lines that we just created will take care of these shapes from most angles. Looking from the front, we see our standard face shape, and as we rotate around, you can see the 3/4 loop will take over and give us our cheek shape while hiding the other loop. And as we rotate on around to the side, our nose and mouth shape is revealed. Now we can move on to the eye. Coming from a single vert, I ran a loop around to make a circle following the reference, then rotated it around to match the angle of the face. You want to check this in 3/4 view as well, since in 2D, the eye shape in this angle is usually cheated. After all these landmarks are in place, we can start bridging them together. Using a little guesswork on the nose and mouth corners, bringing them back a bit on the y-axis usually works. Once we get this whole face mask area finished, I bring in a sphere to use as a snapping guide as I model the rest of the head. I'm not going to bother modeling the ears or leaving a spot for the neck. These will be separate objects that will look connected later on due to the way that the shader will make it look. So for now, close everything up. Once the head is modeled, I smooth over everything with a slide relax brush in sculpt mode to even out the quads. Just be careful not to go over those three main lines that make up our silhouettes, since we don't want none of those shifting. I added in a circle for the pupil and extracted a couple of loops around the eye to make the lashes. I also started adding materials and line art to the face. The material is just an emission set to white, and the outline can be added by adding in a grease pencil line art. With the grease pencil object selected, you can go to the modifiers tab to select what object or collection gets an outline, how thick the outline is, and what part of the objects generate an outline. Next, I move on to the hair. I'm adding in subdivided cubes to make up the bulk of the hair while using curves to shape the more detailed curly parts. Since Launch's hair is a solid black in the reference, we can be as messy as we want here, as long as we get the outline shapes right. This is also another cheated perspective area, so the hair isn't going to look perfect from all angles. I'm trying my best to match the 3/4 view of the hair, since that will be the main viewing angle for this pose. Since she's been looking a bit weird in the face so far, I took a plane and extruded it around to make her eyebrows, then duplicated and scaled them down to make her eyelid crease. I finished off the eye area by duplicating a part of that eyelid crease to make the lashes. For the hairband, I duplicated a couple of the loops and changed it to white and extruded it around the bottom of the head. I also added the line detail to the ears using curves. You can do this with textures instead, but this early into the sculpt, I really just want to see the detail but don't want to do any of the painting. Back of the hairband, I added in a plane and extruded it out to the shape of the bow and added a solidify modifier to give it some thickness. And to finish off the head, I duplicated one of those curly curves and added in some spheres to bulk up the bottom of the hair. Instead of polymodeling the body like we did the head, I'm going to make a body sculpt that I can use as a snapping guide to retopologize over. Kinda how we did the sphere on the back of the head to snap to. So in order to have something to sculpt onto, I'll block out the body with subdivided cubes. matching the shapes up with the front and side references as close as I can. I also polymodeled a really crude hand to help me out later during retopology. Now that the blockout is finished, I apply all of the subdivision and mirror modifiers, join all the body objects, and remesh everything into one manifold mesh. Now we can go into sculpt mode to smooth the transitions and refine the body a bit more. Moving on to retopology, most of the time you'd want to start at the bottom of the head and begin working down the neck. But since our head isn't going to be connected, I'm going to start at the hand since, for me at least, it's the hardest part to do. I start off by adding in a circle with 6 verts and extrude it out to the length of the finger with a slight taper. I'll add 2 loop cuts for the joints and cap off the end. Then I beveled the loops for the joints and moved the middle loops forward a bit for the finger knuckles. Now we can place, duplicate, and reuse this to make the rest of the fingers. After connecting the fingers together, we can start working our way towards the wrist. There's a lot of verts coming off of those fingers, so most of the open space of the hand will be used to reduce and reroute the loops. What I'm aiming for in the end is to have an 8 vert circle at the wrist. Now that the hard part's over with, I place the retopoed hand on the wrist and extrude it up the arm, adding a few loop cuts along the way. Once we get some geometry running from the shoulder to the center, it's pretty easy from here on. Duplicate a plane and cut it into a 3x4. Extrude it out to the edge of the boob, and add some loop cuts to finish off the chest. Connect everything up, and keep on moving down. If you'd like to go more in depth on body retopology, I made a step-by-step video on just that subject. There's a link in the description if you'd like to check that out. Now that the dreaded retopology section is finished, I jump back into sculpt mode with the slide relax brush, and give the whole body a smoothing to even out all the quad placements. After that, I add a rigify human meta rig and start aligning the bones to the body. We can delete all of these face bones since we won't be needing them. Don't forget the hidden bone that's behind the main head bone. Once everything's lined up, click generate rig to get all these fancy looking controllers, click on the body mesh and then shift click the new rig, press Ctrl P and choose automatic weights. To attach the head, I selected everything above the neck, including the hair, headband, everything. Shift click the rig, go into pose mode, and once in here, select the head controller, hit Ctrl P, and choose Parent to Bone. Now that everything is rigged up correctly, I start getting our naked launch into a rough pose. We'll have to tweak the pose a little bit later as we add clothes, but it's nice to have a pose to switch to and from to see how the clothes are deforming. Switching back into the T-pose, I add in a cylinder and shrink wrap it to the body to make her top, adding in some loop cuts so it conforms to the body a bit better, then making some tweaks with a grab brush and some proportional editing. To make her shorts, I duplicated some geometry from the crotch area and added a solidify to give it a bit of depth, then duplicating more geometry to make the rest of her shorts details. Same deal with her 80s style leg warmer workout sock things. Duplicate a few loops from the lower leg, separate and solidify it. Scale some of the loops to make it look all bunched up and droopy. We can leave the feet alone, just add in some material so they become her shoes. So the cool thing about using grease pencil for the line art is that we can take advantage of freestyle marked edges. When we select an edge and press Ctrl E and choose Mark Freestyle, the grease pencil will draw a line wherever it was marked. We can use this to make the seam lines in her shorts. We can also use this method to draw the belly button and the clavicles. Since we just can't mark the edge to get her cleavage line, we'll have to jump into sculpt mode and push the girls closer together. And since we didn't rig the face, we'll have to pose the mouth manually. And since we don't want to lose our default face, just in case we want to do a different pose later, we'll edit her mouth placement within a shape key. Using proportional editing, set to connected only, we can open the mouth and start shaping it into an open circle. Alright, the last bit of clothing we need is her straps. These can easily be made by extruding a plane over her shoulder with snapping. Then we can duplicate a plane to create these little connector pieces. We're almost finished, but as you can see, we're missing a ton of ink lines. The last bit we have to do now is texture painting. In order to be able to paint on launch, I unwrapped only the necessary parts that I knew I'd be drawing on. Then I created a new image and hooked it into a mix color node using the alpha as the factor. Then I hooked it into the emission node that we'd been using all along. Now the fun part. We get to draw a bunch of scratchy ink lines everywhere. I have the reference pulled up on my other monitor that's not being recorded, and I'm trying to match all the fold lines I see in the ref. Anything I can't see that's on the other side is just improvised. I also made Launch's money bag using all of the same steps that I talked about before. Now, before we get into the final render, I wanted to mention that I put this blend file up on Gumroad for free. You can repose it, edit it, make your own renders, whatever you want, I don't mind. You don't even have to credit me. I've also put up the real-time Sculpt video on Gumroad if you'd like to watch 13 hours of me experimenting and screwing up. Since the file size for the video is so large, Gumroad makes me charge for it, so I have it set to just $1. Okay, let's check out the launch turnaround. Thanks for watching, guys. Links to anything I've mentioned in the video is in the description below. If you're looking for a place to hang out and do some 2D and 3D stuff, you can check out our Discord. There's tons of people in there willing to help if you're just getting started. Also, if you're wanting to keep up with what I'm working on at the moment, follow me on the socials. All the links are in the description. Alright, bye.